Hi, Kat here for Lightwave Digital. In this video, we're going to continue on to discuss some of the other additional features and functions of the Flow tool that is now part of Lightwave 2024 and beyond. So, in a previous video, what we did is we set up this wonderful scene here, and we have both our preview and our bake available to us now that we've got it set up. The preview looks, pretty interesting, but this is obviously not the result that we want for our bake. So let's go and hit pause. Let's hit reset. Let's look at the bake and jump ourselves over to the filter tab right next to the liquid tab and take a look at what's happening here with some of these filters. Now you can run this in real time while you're running the bake. So let's hit run. We're going to overwrite the files and we can see that we've got a nice kind of smooth gooey looking mesh here. And if I start turning off certain filters like the Gaussian filter, it looks a little bit more similar to what we had in the preview, although much less chunky. These different filters apply a deformation or a tightening or an expansion of the mesh as it's being generated. And there are specific amounts that you can dial in. So starting with the erode filter, let's just go to 2 erodes. You can see the difference in the change there. Let's go to 3. Pause, reset, and run it. You'll see that it's now eroded so much that we actually do not have any results. So it's like there's nothing there. Change it back to 2. Let's reset it. Run. Now we've got fluid again. So basically we've tightened it up so much that we have no fluid that's being generated. So really anything above these 1 or 2 erode iterations, depending on the size of your emitter, is really not recommended. However, there are amounts that you can dial in. You can see the amount the erode filter is being affected. If it's at 0, it's just doing the erode iterations, but without a actual amount. There's no contribution to it. So think of this as like how many times you want to erode this kind of dithered or smooth over top of it. So let's jump up to a higher value here. Let's go to 1. Pull it right in. Let's go to 0.5. And it disappears. So you can see that the previously generated mesh in that particular instance, once it did arrive at the erosion amount, it kind of started to dissolve. And that's why this is a envelopable function. You can produce unpredictable results, but you can see these results in real time while you're baking out to a mesh sequence. Turning this erode filter off, let's try with the Gaussian filter. Gaussian filter basically smooths any type of bumpiness out very quickly, gives it a nice gelatinous look. But you'll see that the mesh cohesion really starts to become more unified the higher these values come out. So let's go back down to Gaussian with the 1. Let's try it with the Laplacian filter. And this is a filter that can be dilated, so it can be expanded essentially. And the dilate iterations pop it up to 2, 3. Combine it with the erode filter, and you can see that the mesh will have a much different shape result. Very smooth, kind of thickens it. So experimenting with these values is quite recommended. Let's turn this back down to 1 iteration. And hit pause here. All right, now that's with the GUI filter, or the GUI default preset. Let's dial this back down to like maybe 1 and hit reset, and let's run the simulation here. So we've got more flow, more stuff. It'll be easier for us to see what's going on. So let's take a look at that filter amount. Let's go with the erode of 0.1. Start to see that effect. 0.5. It shrinks the mesh, essentially tightening it or forming it closer down to the originating particle that is currently, if you looked at it, in preview mode in that area. Now, if you want to get a better idea of how this looks, we've been looking at all of this through the texture shaded solid mode. There's nothing stopping you from switching and taking a look at it in texture shaded mode or texture shaded solid wireframe or even vertices. So if you want to see what the actual mesh is doing while working with these filters, you most certainly can. So let's hit preview, bake, let's reset and run it. Dial that back down to 1 erode iteration. All right, that looks pretty good. Dilate iterations. Let's go 2. Let's go erode amount 0.5. Totally disappears the mesh. It's basically sucking it into oblivion. But here you can see 0.1, 0.15. Tightens it up. Based off of the parameters for the liquid as it's being generated, it'll do various modifications to how it behaves. And you'll notice that with more of the filter applied, you'll get less chances for mesh dropping off, but those drop-offs will be smaller. Now, this all highly depends on where my emitter is, how fast I'm emitting stuff, what the actual particle size is. There are a number of factors at work here. So when working with these filters, always start out with just the bare minimum that you need and then apply things. Otherwise, you might find yourself, oh, what happened? I changed the filter and I've completely disappeared the entire mesh. So that becomes a problem if you don't know the interface to this software very well and you're looking for what did you change, what happened, and it becomes problematic. So understanding what this filter will do is one thing, but understanding what it will do to liquid that's been generated using these settings is a totally different matter. So as we get into future videos, we're going to be exploring how these settings work, and we're also going to be taking a look at the advanced simulation options that can very wildly change the performance of both your system, but also the performance of your character here, which is our slimy goo, based off of these functions. So we'll be getting that into a new video that'll be coming next in this series.